We've had some questions that people have put into the box, and so Louisa typed all those up, and those are up there. So I think we will work our way through those questions, and then if anybody thinks of anything else, we'll give the opportunity for people to ask questions, more questions as well. So I think we'll just answer these between us. We'll go through them, and anybody who has an opinion can pitch in. So the first question: if you're having a cheek swab after an eye test, is there any extra cost? If yes, how much? No, there is no extra cost. So the eye panelists are from time to time all sent swab kits. Some of them use them up and ask for more. Others, I don't know, they sit in the bottom of their bags for quite a long time. But we're always happy. We have a lot of swab kits. Anybody who's had a swab kit from us will notice they're AHT branded still, but that was one of the things we managed to rescue from the Animal Health Trust. But they don't go off. There might actually be a date on some of them, but they are little cytology brushes, and they don't go off.
So I've still got some from the Animal Health Trust. Can I use those?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we can give you updated submission forms.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a bit of paper that accompanies it will, yeah.
Yeah, email Brian and he can send you a PDF of the submission forms if you want to do that, or he can send the one to someone else.
So if your ophthalmologist does not have a kit with them at the time, or you say all is not lost, you can contact us directly afterwards. We'll send you a kit and you can send it in, and there is no, we would ask you to, I think, pay for the postage. But it's just a large letter, not that. Is it a large letter? Large letter cost anyway. But yeah, the actual kit and the swabs and everything is free of charge. Does that apply to gonioscopy? Yes. So if your dog has had gonioscopy done and it's maybe affected, or it's you'd like to send us a swab, the same applies. We'll just get a form to fill in that asks, what the dog is affected with, or if anything, and we would ask you again to enclose a copy of your BVAI exam, or yeah.
What grade level would that be? 2 or 3?
I mean, we would take anything, but ideally the higher grades. So I think the higher grades are obviously at an increased risk of glaucoma. And then I would say if your dog's had an eye exam, it's got a high grade, and it later develops glaucoma, that would be really, really, really useful for us to know. Same with that, because that goes for all samples actually. If anything changes, so if you submit a control, a healthy dog that then develops something, please let us know. Okay. What is being done with Give a Dog a Genome data? So you've heard today about some of the things that we've used Give a Dog a Genome data for. So all the Give a Dog a Genome sequences are used pretty much for nearly every project. So when we are, to go back to what I talked about today, when we're screening the Old English sheepdog genome, we use every single genome that was generated from Give a Dog a Genome, as well as many others. So I appreciate that. It's not great consolation for your individual breed, but you are contributing to all of the studies and helping us sort of increase our general knowledge. And then when it comes to the turn of your breed to be the dog at the top, everybody else, all the other breeds' genomes contribute to that study as well. So Sally, I think, quite thoroughly described what the process is for the epilepsy genome. So any breed who paid for a genome to be sequenced as part of gives an epilepsy genome, that will be, contributing to Sally's studies. We have a lot of eye disease genomes that are sort of sitting in a queue waiting to be analysed. So the genomes are all there, and they're all, being used, and we will retain them all. As I think Sally has explained very well, if your genome was of a dog affected with a complex disease, then those are bigger, more time, have a much longer timeline. Does that explain sufficiently, or has anybody got any? Yeah.
Just ask, it's not on there. How secure is the funding now from the Kennel Club? Because I know she
okay.
A little bit. Don't worry, in the future.
Is there anybody in the room? I'm not from the Kennel Club, so I think Would you like to speak to that, Mike, or not?
Well, I can speak on behalf of the Kennel Club Charitable Trust. We wanted to support the continuation, obviously, of the Kennel Club Genetics Centre. As you probably know, the Kennel Club itself has got into some financial difficulties, and the main funding, the routine funding for the Kennel Club Genetics Centre was made on the surplus that was then transferred to the Kennel Club Charitable Trust and then was given over to the Animal Health Trust to run the Kennel Club Genetics Centre. Now, the Kennel Club Charitable Trust doesn't have sufficient income to maintain the Kennel Club Genetics Centre in the long term. We've helped out, obviously, over this period, and we will continue to help out for as long as our funds remain viable. But obviously we have a lot of other calls on the money. So we just have to be careful with that. The way in which the Kennel Club Genetics Centre is now developed within the University of Cambridge is that obviously the University of Cambridge is putting in a lot of money to provide the hosting and the computer support for the Kennel Club Genetics Centre. The Kennel Club Charitable Trust is also providing general funding and will try and provide sufficient funding so that the main principal investigators can apply for outside grants to support their work. But it's going to be this sort of collaborative method, and the more money that people can raise for their own breeds, the more work can be done. And that's really the situation that we have at the moment. And the Kennel Club itself needs to sort out its finances. And
Was it not a little short-sighted of the Kennel Club to promote the Weatherby's doing the DNA testing when they had the
couldn't possibly comment. I don't know whether you can comment on that.
I couldn't possibly.
No, yeah.
All my time.
I think the main concern that when we talked about it was people's wages. It's not just the research money. People need to be paying to actually do it.
Yeah, we were.
I mean, that's the biggest cost by a long shot is just to pay people.
Can I assure you that the University of Cambridge is also very well aware of that and will not allow the money to run down to less than 3 months, because then they have to statutorily give them notice that they're not going to be paid after that. So yes, it's a difficult situation, and we've got over a couple of crises, and I think the Kennel Club Charitable Trust is mindful of that and would like to continue the funding for as long as possible. But it does rely that the principal investigators have to go out and source funding from other funding bodies to be able to support not only their own work but also their own salaries.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
I'm not being, genuinely not being political here, or trying not to be, but I think the genetics centre is too valuable to lose.
Well, you're pushing on an open door, because that's why we've supported it. Absolutely.
Well, I can understand going out to get external grants, and I can understand breed clubs helping, and I think we're all in this together as people who love dogs. But it is too valuable to lose. And I think I learned that when the AHT had to close. Oh, yes. When I think of the work that various breed clubs and individuals must have put in all that time beforehand to suddenly think it might all go, it's pretty horrendous.
Well, yeah, and that was actually my thought, and was Bill King's thought and James Wood when we managed to bring it over here, because there was a question as to whether we would even be allowed to do that when the Animal Health Trust plans. Yeah.
But yeah, it was a hairy few months, but it was not without expense, and as I say, every time I felt like there was a couple of weeks when I was on the phone to Bill King, regularly saying, I'm sorry, I need another pot of money to move my freezers, or to extract some data off the server, and he never hesitated. So that I'll be eternally grateful for that. So because if we'd had to start again with all the data and all the samples, I think I would be on island somewhere with my cocktail, saying I'm doing something else. So it was, yeah, really credit to the charitable trust that we were able to come here, and to the, you know, the James Wood and the Cambridge, that they found us a home for, you know, quite a
But
modest.
that you guys stuck with it as well, when you must go on such.
Yeah, so my team, I cannot, speak highly enough of the people in my group who were all most unemployed actually for best part of a year actually. But that's, I think, you know, testament to how important we feel this job is to us. So, you know, it's obviously important to you, but we're all, you know, many of us are dog owners and dog lovers, and it's, yeah, what gets me up in the morning. What gets me up in the morning is the day when I can send an email or to a breed to say, we've made progress, we've found your, you know, variant, or we found your mutation, or, you know, we've made some really good progress. So it's not the papers in the high impact journals that gets me up in the morning. It's those emails and being able to look at people and say, you know, we've done it, we've made some progress for you. So yeah, I think we're all in it together. It's the where there's a will, there's a way. We're not, yeah, we're here for a while.
20 years, she's had a latest research.
We wouldn't have a breed now if we hadn't got the ELL test when we did.
Yeah, so that's, yeah, I still remember the day I sent that email saying we found that mutation, and it's probably, you know, one of the highlights of my career. So yeah, we're all in this together. Hopefully Cambridge University is not going anywhere anytime soon. So yeah, I think with the
Been around for a bit.
been around for a bit, yeah, and hopefully so yeah. Thank you, everybody. Shall we continue going down this list? So the research, development, testing genetically for glaucoma. So there's two types of glaucoma. There's open angle glaucoma and there's closed angle glaucoma. So open angle glaucoma is the rarer variety in dogs, but it's in all the cases, all the breeds that we've looked at, it seems to be a recessive disease. But I think it's closed angle glaucoma that probably most people are worried about. So this is the type of glaucoma where the gonial dysgenesis, or an abnormality of the iridocorneal angle, is a risk factor. So we're working on that. I alluded to work we're doing with Basset hounds. So that's the breed. So we've looked at it in closed angle glaucoma is a complex disease. So everything that Sally said about epilepsy, you could probably, you know, consider to be relevant for epilepsy. You know, needs slightly larger sample sets than for open angle glaucoma, some of the other eye diseases. So James Oliver did a PhD that was funded by Dogs Trust, where we made he gathered an awful lot of samples, going around the country, sort of looking at eyes, and found some findings. And the breed that he had, you know, the most promising findings was the Basset Hound. We've had some additional funding from the American Kennel Club. And again, we hope that findings on that breed will build on over time. So we're a way off a DNA test, but it's certainly still part of our repertoire of projects. Fair to say. Is PPM inherited? Can it be treated? So PPM is persistent pupillary membrane. So it's an eye condition. I think it is inherited. We think in that some breeds seem to be more predisposed than others, or higher prevalence in some breeds. Can it be treated? That's a question for an ophthalmologist, I think. I'm not sure it's always a problem, clinical relevance. But yeah, I would ask an ophthalmologist about that. I don't think it can be treated, but I also think it doesn't cause a clinical problem in a lot of dogs. We have had a look at PPM in Staffordshire Bull Terriers, but yeah, it'll fall firmly, I think, into the complex category as well, unfortunately. How much are hip scores affected by environmental damage? I'm definitely not the person to answer that question. Yes, please do.
So that depends a little bit on your breed. So if you look at the scores, if any of you do hip scoring, you'll know that there's 9 categories that are scored on each hip. And if you look at the first three are related to whether the ball fits the socket. The hip joint is a ball and socket joint, and if it's a good fit, then you won't get any disease later on in terms of secondary osteoarthritis. So if the first three are low, then you're unlikely to get any change. But then there's two things. One is the genetic susceptibility of an individual breed to develop secondary osteoarthritis. And of course, the Labrador Retriever, for example, is quite prone to do that. Whereas other breeds, for example, the St. Bernard, can have its hips sort of out here somewhere and doesn't get any secondary arthritis. Now you could say, well, it doesn't move very much, but basically, you know, there are bone producers and non-bone producers, and if they're bone producers, then they will get a massive change with environmental damage to the hips as they go through life. So the other categories below the first three will start to increase. But in some breeds, as I mentioned, for example, the St. Bernard, it may be that those categories don't increase as much as you might expect for a bone-producing bone-producing breed. But environmental factors certainly have an effect on hip dysplasia, as do, you know, their growth phase and their diet and other things, the amount of exercise they take. But if they've got good full fitting joints, then the amount of exercise they take will have a minimum effect on producing osteoarthritis later on in life.
Thank you very much. DNA storage for numerically small breeds. I think this is probably referring to whether, you know, the idea of archiving, yeah. So we have done that for some breeds and continue to do so for some breeds. So we're thinking more along the lines of just storing DNA from all dogs, or yeah.
Everything we can gather together.
Yeah. So we can certainly do that. We would ask for because we won't have any specific funding for that. We used to ask for, I think, £5 a kit donation. We might need to revise that in the light of everything else going more expensive. But yeah, we would certainly, you know, be happy to do that. I mean, what makes that sort of broad DNA collection work the best is if you keep us updated as those dogs go through their lives, and if, you know, they develop something, let us know and we'll update their record. So yeah, DNA sample from a dog that was collected when it was 8 weeks old and we don't know anything else about their health is of limited value. But yeah, certainly we would, so I would suggest you send an email to the KC Kennel Club Genetics Centre email and ask Brian about that, and he'll be very happy. What he would probably do, from our point of view, it works easy if we send somebody, usually the breed health coordinator, a box of samples, and then you distribute them, and then people can send them directly back to the genetics centre. Yes, and if it could be accompanied by a donation, that would be appreciated as well. Yeah, yeah.
Did that very exercise quite some time ago for sebaceous adenitis. I believe samples have been moved here.
Yep.
Although I haven't spoken to Brian in a while. Is it worth us trying to get hold of those owners again, and would they just email you, and what kind of
With updates?
With updates on health, because it was like between 20, probably 15 and 19. So we kind of stopped when the AHP.
Yeah. No, it's always
trying to sort of do.
Yeah, two things. A, if the dog has developed sebaceous adenitis since the sample was submitted, that's very useful. But also if the dog has had
anything else.
Yeah. Or if they've died aged 12 in a pretty good state for their age without any, you know, any particular diagnosis, and that's also interesting, you know, useful information as well. So yeah.
In particular, there's one sample I do know of where the dog was related to a dog that had SA, but it died at the age of 13, no signs of SA whatsoever.
Yeah, so that would be useful information, because that turns that dog into a good control.
Generally, if you want to say, you had an example of your copy at 8 weeks old, and later on it developed something, and we were to let you know about that, in what form would you like that information? Just an email, or do you need?
An email is okay. Yeah. If I say we like to collect, you know, a confirmed veterinary diagnosis. And that way we can, you know, be confident about that diagnosis. So, you know, a copy of, we don't need the dog's entire veterinary history, but, you know, if it was an eye, you know, just a referral letter from a copy of the referral letter, or the a vet's sort of opinion on what it is, and then we can store that along with the, one for you, I think, here, Sally. Small breed with, I presume, IE is idiopathic epilepsy. Submitting DNA samples for comparison with the results found in other breeds were unlikely. Do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, so as I mentioned in the sort of final slides of my talk, so for the breed where, you know, they may not be numerically big enough or the disease isn't prevalent enough to collect these big case control sets, if we've got, you know, a genome and if we can collect, you know, any samples, that would be good. So I was talking to the Lake and Welsh Springers. So I think what we'll do towards the end of the year is start reaching out to obviously the 5 breeds we're going to focus on, but we'll also do a bit of a stock take of what we've got for the other gift dog genome breeds, and compile a kind of summary for them, and perhaps think about, you know, how, if you wanted to contribute from a breed that wasn't part of gift dog genome, but you'd like to contribute to our epilepsy research, you know, a sort of information sheet on how we can do that. So yeah, so we'll be in touch. Yeah. Fine. That answers the question.
Yeah. If we have a dog of any breed that has a rare or bizarre disease diagnosed and the vet has full info and bloods, etc., where can we send the info? To the Kennel Club Genetics Centre. So that general email that I've put up a couple of times is a good place to start. And then Brian would send you a swab kit or just an address and information about how to send us a sample. Yeah. And finally, bloat. Is there any current research being done, and are we getting any closer to a genetic test? Bloat, I think, is firmly in the complex disease category, and I have to say we've not made a start on really studying the genetics of bloat, and it would be firmly in the complex. I don't know if anybody other research is being done anywhere about bloat. I don't know. Where is Thomas Hackney?
I'll take it.
Okay.
With it as well.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, if there's somebody looking at it already, then they're ahead of.
I don't know if it's clinics or clinic, but it's.
Okay.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's one of those conditions where you know, good clinical characterization is.
I think they've gone for different breeds that have been appropriate.
Yeah.
To compare
Okay.
breeds, and that might lead on to genetic.
Yeah, I've always been a bit scared of looking at the genetics of bloat, really, because again, I think it's one of these things that confirmation, I think, will play a part, not be the whole story, but a part of it. So yeah.
So we keep to people are advising on these attacks
Yeah.
currently. There's been a lot of close.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, it is a condition that I've obviously been aware of as being a concern of quite a few breeds, but we have not to date really made a start on looking at the genetics of it. Okay, so that's the end of the list of questions there. Has anybody got any final questions? Otherwise, we will let you go when you're ready. Yeah.
So the one I know was asking to ask, you know, if conditions is inherited. So Mitch has just been diagnosed with it at 9 years old.
Do you want to go with that, Mike? Do you see it?
Well, there's some breed predisposition, but I think the frequency of the disease is such that an obvious genetic trait is not likely. Maybe in the miniature poodle, which was the original breed that was found, then that might be. I've certainly seen it in some lines of dog, but I don't think it's straightforward. It will be in the complex category, I think.
Sorry, I know it is a complex category, but osteosarcoma in certain breeds is really, really high on the rise compared to 30, 40 years ago. So is there anything we can do to continue to
I mean, so when we were at the HT, so Mike Starkey was doing all the sort of cancer work. So the Kennel Club Genetics Centre has not, up to date really done a lot of cancer work. Mike certainly did look at osteosarcoma in some
looking at,
in some breeds.
Irish Wolfhounds, Deerhounds, Pyrenees, blood breeds.
Yeah.
But I know some of those breeds, I don't know if there's any health hospitals looking at lunchtime, but I know some of them are now working with, USA researchers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are sort of groups who are certainly ahead of us on
Particularly the Irish
cancer.
Wolfhounds.
Yeah.
I mean, all the samples that Mike Starkey had collected and some of his data, I think, we have that, but Mike is now working elsewhere and going down a slightly different path, but yeah.
USAR and Rob Byler's have been for years,
Yeah.
quite a few years.
Yeah, I mean, again, it will be in that complex category. That doesn't mean that it's not possible to make progress with it, but
Is it not sort of, for me, our country working with the other countries on the same subjects?
yeah, we do. I mean, Sally's talk was, a long list of collaborators in other countries that we were. Yeah, dog genetics is a very, very collaborative, field, because there's not enough money for us all to silo ourselves. So we are very, very collaborative. So all the samples that we have, we share DNA samples with collaborators on a regular basis in our genome. So I think we definitely do talk to each other. It's just that the Genetics Centre has not a history of looking at cancer genetics.
So how would we, which we're very interested in at the moment for our breed of Shiba Inus, is getting some DNA markers for glaucoma, because obviously what I explained to you about putting lenses into obliquely set eyes aren't conducive to the dog's temperament or health. And America are doing a lot of research on it. So if we generate money.
Who is America?
Pardon?
Who is? Okay,
Yeah.
is that Andros Komarami?
Yeah.
Yes.
So they're doing that. So how do we, because we're the numerically small breed here, how do we collaborate with them?
So, so if you can find a contact, I can give you Andros's email, or you can find him if you put him into Google, I'm sure. So you could approach them directly. You can send DNA samples. So they will want the same as we would ask for, as DNA samples from affected dogs with a confirmed diagnosis, clear dogs. But yeah, I'm sure he would be very happy to take DNA samples from, or you can send them to us and we would collaborate with him, send them to him in a batch. Sometimes that works better than individuals sending DNA. But yeah, I've communicated with Andros. He's collaborative and communicative, and I'm sure he would be open to working with you. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, because we're all sort of through health things here, what would be really useful, and I know this is probably a little bit unused, but it would help your funding, is if we on our breeds get a list of, we've got this year we've taken so many genetic samples for your breed, we've got so many samples in storage, and your samples being used in this research. It allows us to feed back to breed club, but then it makes it easier for us to approach the same breed clubs and say, well, it's costing them £5 a sample, can we cover the cost of the samples they've taken this year? Can we cover the cost of, £1 per sample of their storage? And it then makes it easier to get donations from the breed clubs funding this. Is its membership money, and therefore they want to know it's going to something very specific for the breed. So if we've got the information of this is how the data already collected is being used from our breed, and also what how many samples, we can at least get you some money from the breed clubs to help cover those costs. I know it's a bit peanuts, but it big helps.
I mean, but I would say for most breeds, if we are actively using your samples for an investigation, and we probably we've probably talked to you already. In fact, the breeders probably come to us, because we don't wake up one morning and decide we're going to look at, disease X in breed Y today.
We've heard the other one, not heard too much from you guys since Mike Starkey left, because obviously I was talking.
So I just tried to explain, I think, that Mike Starkey is no longer working.
Yeah, I know, but what I'm
Yeah.
saying is, for a numerically small breed,
Yeah.
it's hard to get, but it doesn't mean that we can't, I can at least support you by covering samples, storage that is specific.
So I think, we would be doing research that you would want us to do. So,
I'll ask you some comments, please.
yeah, and most things that we do is, so I think, osteosarcoma is sort of slightly outside of our current, and as I hope you've got the message today that we're quite busy and we've got quite a long list of things to work on. But you could help us to help you. But so if there is, another researcher elsewhere in the world who's, ahead of us, we would happily talk to them. We would happily collect your samples on.
So I know for epilepsy, there's a French university that's working on, and they can put a whole load of samples, genetic samples for our breed.
That might be Catherine Andre's group, University of Rennes. Rennes.
Yeah.
So again, we have a very good working relationship with Catherine Andre, and we would happily collect DNA on your behalf and forward it to Catherine Andre. Yeah, we don't fight anybody for projects that they're already, ahead of the game on. So our list of things is quite long enough. So, yeah, I mean, talk to us, I think.
I know because I'm out in front of the no name engine from Dex, so I know my dogs are in that survey.
Yeah.
Yeah, on part of data collection.
Yeah. Okay, well, I promised to let you go at 4, so you've got a few more minutes to ask any final questions or, yep.
Do you know if there's any more development with the German Shepherd exon, whichever exon they have got, DM test? Because if you speak to a lot of German Shepherd breeders, they won't do the one test because you could still be putting 2 dogs that are affected with DM together. What's the point in testing for one?
So degenerative myelopathy is probably the most contentious DNA test out there, or one of them. So I don't know if anybody is actively working on DM. I don't know if anybody else in the group knows, but we are not. So I do know that of all the breeds that can test for DM, German Shepherd is one of the small number of breeds where the test is a better test, in that a genotype is more likely to predict a DM in the future, but it certainly is a very imprecise test. Is that a good way to describe it? It's an association. It's definitely not a diagnostic test in most breeds. But I don't know if anybody, I have to say, is working on refining that test, I'm afraid. But certainly for a lot of breeds, they should be very careful about using the DM test as a selective breeding tool. Say that, yeah.
Do you know what's happening with the one milligram? I've spoken to Hannah a bit because it's becoming.
I don't. So I think Hannah.
There's something.
Yeah, I think Hannah should. Talk to me and let me know. I suspect she knows more than I do about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I already know what's.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not something we've been involved in that. Okay, well, I will just wrap up. I'd like to say thank you very, very much for coming. I hope you all have really good journeys home. I think it's been a good day from our perspective. We've had quite a bit of positive feedback already. If any of you have any comments, I'd like to think we can do this kind of day again, having done it and it's been a success. So we're very, look forward to doing them in the future. If anybody has any views on constructive criticism, things we could have done differently, or things you would like to have heard about, please let us know. So just final thank you very much and safe journeys home.